software designer. And the focus with the work that I did was really about introducing, autonomy to unmanned or uncrewed systems and driving, that ability to use an RPA in ways similar to how our traditional pilots have used, ISR or fighter assets in the past. And so, one of the things that, through a course of time, one of the things that I learned as I went through the process was, learning about how to adapt dynamically to the challenges that, unfold as we go forward. In particular, I came in, with this big and great idea about how we would do multi-vehicle control of disparate aircraft, and we would do this with all this software, machine-to-machine connectivity, and we would integrate all these capabilities, directly pass it to an aircraft, and the aircraft would just execute accordingly. And systematically, what I personally learned in that process is that while my great idea might have been kind of one of these things, I'll say an optimum from a technology perspective, it was not the optimum when you start to put the user in the process. Some of that very first resistance that I came up against was that we had users that would sit in front of the system and begin to ask, why did it do that? Why did it behave that way? I don't understand, why this airplane took this task and that airplane took that task. Why did this airplane route in this direction instead of going that direction? I think it should have gone that way. And so it really, from an innovation perspective, it challenged me to explore how to weave in the dynamics of the user community into that process, that it's not purely about the technology. And what I would say is, speaking to all of you, one of the challenges that I'll put in front of you is that as you look at innovation, you play an incredibly important role in that innovation discussion as you interact with industry, as you interact with, folks adjacent to you in any part of your activity, whether you're a pilot, you're a maintainer, you're an acquirer. Any of those dimensions, you play a very important role in the innovation side of things, and that you're going to you have that opportunity to explore new ways of doing things. And so one of the fun stories that I like to tell is that as we were going through this innovation process and we actually moved farther down the field, we were operating in a model where we started putting together what we would characterize as human factors reviews, where we would have users come in and explore these multi-vehicle control capabilities with the system that we were exploring it on. And, we were bringing in various Air Force pilots. We had an A-10 operator. We had some MQ-9 pilots. We had some former F-16 pilots. And we also had some folks that had come up through the system, and they were sensor operators. They weren't characterized formally as pilots. They were sensor operators. And what was interesting is that the way in which we had designed the system, when we did the performance reviews through these human factors experiments, we found that in this instance, the sensor operator was actually the individual that was performing at the highest proficiency with the system that we had put together. And so it just further reinforced this construct with innovation about understanding the user and their strengths and their weaknesses in terms of how you build or adapt a system around it. And so we began, as this autonomy journey continued to expand, we moved through that. And so it really emphasized to me that importance of interacting with the user and understanding how far you can advance technology is really impacted with things. And so giving that kind of as a background for everybody, it'll set the stage for the rest of the conversation. As I look at where we're at today, 2023, and all the technology that's in front of us and the opportunities that are there, this idea of being able to trust the technology and trust and understand how autonomy and artificial intelligence gets employed within our weapon systems is going to be a fundamental challenge, where we have to understand how the technology actually operates and interacts with the humans that we're going to put in front of it. What we're looking at right now, I'll give you one of these use cases we're exploring today. We are, injecting artificial intelligence into the outer loop portions of our flight control systems to explore if an air-to-air weapon was shot at one of our fighters. Well, there are a pilot today will do a number of evasive maneuvers and activities to burn off the energy of that weapon before employing countermeasures to basically avoid being hit. Well, we are exploring right now through the employment of AI ways in which the system can be more efficient at burning off the energy of the incoming missile, and use that as a strategy to increase the probability of survival of the aircraft and the pilot. And what's interesting about that is that becomes in this spirit of taking advantage of the technology, our early results in all of this has shown that the AI performs extraordinarily well, and in many cases is outperforming the pilot in our human in the loop scenarios. But the challenge with that is that, so when we actually get it beyond just this early research stage and we're putting it into the user community's hands, are they actually going to trust it to make that decision? And then how do you construct an environment that allows the pilot to be in control and then make a decision that says, okay, I don't have it, AI, you now need to take over, you got it. And there's this interesting dynamic about how those two elements have to weave together to ultimately have a system that can be useful in the field. And so as we navigate through things, there's a lot of technology that we're continuing to advance where that user interaction, and I'll characterize it in the simplest of senses, it's trust. How do we get our user community to trust all these great technologies that are going to be put in front of us? And that's really where I thought it would be an interesting conversation to bring in front of all of you, is that you will be that user community. You will be the ones that sit in front of these technologies and make decisions about how far forward can you trust the technology? What boundary conditions do you put on that technology to facilitate moving our capabilities as a nation farther down the field? So I think that, right now, the AI technologies, as we continue to explore them, we've been able to, take advantage of things with both doing dogfighting, doing air-to-air combat, navigating those, air-to-air missile avoidance strategies, passive collaborative behavior, where we've got one aircraft that flies as a wingman and actually makes decisions passively based on the actions of the flight lead in a force ship, and makes those decisions. So as an example, flashing a wing, and then that means that the aircraft goes and does a series of behaviors as a result of that, and it's got the AI on board to make those decisions. And there's a whole series or litany of additional artificial intelligence capabilities that we see that we're advancing and continuing to explore. And for those technologies to reach the understanding how to make that a collaborative interaction with the user. I think the other interesting dimension that as we continue to advance the technologies is that we're looking at an environment today where many of these situations where we look at it through that lens of one operator, one system. But with all of this artificial intelligence capability, it's going to begin to scale, where there's going to be mechanisms where the pilot really or the user in a system is going to be operating more as a tactician, and then higher level strategic guidance to a group or family of systems that are all operating under that cognizance. And that's emerging research that we're continuing to explore that builds upon these multi-vehicle control concepts that we had worked in the past. And this is all in the spirit of being able to identify ways in which to compress the kill chain timeline by having these systems identify the ambiguities in the decision space, close those as quickly as possible, and use artificial intelligence to help bring the right information in front of the user of those series of systems to then allow the authoritative decision by a human to be made. And one thing that we talk a lot about within the Skunk Works is we're making decisions about where we want to invest and how far we want to take things, actually starts to weave its way into an adjacency of ethics and the ethics dimension of artificial intelligence. Right now, it's one of these interesting paradigms where from a peer adversary perspective, we're not convinced that we'll see our adversary use artificial intelligence in the same ethical way that we would, where humans are still in the loop of making decisions that are life and death decisions. But that is the model in which we operate as a nation. And so that puts a greater burden on both the technology and the user community to figure out how you blend those two things together so that you can have these very rapid decision timelines while at the same time being able to correlate the ethics of our nation to the outcome of any sort of weapon engagement process. And so that's one of these areas that we actually do spend a fair amount of time talking about the ethics of artificial intelligence and the software that we employ within our weapon systems, and how that then blends itself with the user community's mechanisms for using the products that we develop. So I know that we got a little bit of a late start, and so I guess I'd like to have a cue from someone there about navigating time. I don't want to blow up the rest of your agenda by continuing to talk about artificial intelligence if y'all are ready to move on.
So we're happy to continue to take some questions. We have another 15 minutes or so that we can take questions. So if you don't mind, we'll open up the floor here in just a second.
Yeah, that would be great.
So I'll get it started here for a second while we run the mic up to somebody else. Would you mind trying to help us understand or differentiate between automation, autonomy, and autonomous systems?
Sure. So I think that the fastest way to differentiate between those different constructs is determinism. And so if we look at automated systems, an automated system has got a defined process that you're going to follow, and every time an input comes in, you have a deterministic output that comes out. And so in an automated system, every state or every vector that exists in the system, you can understand that flow with no ambiguity. It is a completely well understood and well characterized system that you can then do a full evaluation of its of all of its, the branch and bound of the different outcomes that exist. As you step away from an automated system and then migrate yourself toward more autonomous systems, that level of determinism and the potential outcomes start to change. And so when you look at autonomous systems, how we've approached this is that we've tried to put a lot of determinism in the individual software components, but the overall aggregate outcome of how the system may take into account lots of different decision criteria or data that's fed to it may result in varying outcomes depending on the state of the battle space at any given point in time. Whereas the automated system, it would be very prescriptive and you would know exactly the flow, where the more autonomous system, it will start to vary a little bit. And then just to take it to that next step, with artificial intelligence systems, this is much more like our human interactions. All of you get trained, all of you get equipped to go use a system, but in the heat of the battle, you'll make the decisions based on what you've been trained and what you know at that instant, and the outcomes are not as deterministic. And so artificial intelligence, this is where that trust dimension that I talked about comes in, because having trust in the artificial intelligence is saying that you're okay with its outcome. In a force ship of F-35s, that flight lead knows what that wingman is going to do, and there's not a discussion or an evolution of conversation to get to an outcome or a state. It's, I expect this to happen, and then the wingman just executes it and does it, but they do it their own way with their own unique set of learning and capability. And so I think that, for me, the way that I've driven that discussion with my teams as we've developed capabilities over time is really driven around that deterministic outcome. And a lot of the research that we're focusing on now is how we drive trust up in a system that doesn't have that same level of determinism every time, where you have a predictable output.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. I have a question from one of our cadets.
This is Cadet Third Class DeLu from Cadet Squadron 36. In regards to the ethic of utilizing artificial intelligence, where would the responsibility be vested in a circumstance where the system were to fail? Would that be placed on the pilot, the programmer, the system?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that the way that I'll say that it will depend on how the system ultimately is built. The way that we're working right now to try to build up the system is that in the end, all of you are going through rigorous training, rigorous education, so that ultimately you're accountable for making those decisions. That's what sets us apart as a nation, is how we train and equip our warfighters. And as we continue to advance the technology and build products, I don't think that dimension of things will change. And so as we look at the ethics, if I were to, today, if I was put on the spot and had to pick one of the, or pick the point in the spectrum that you articulated, I would say that it would still be the end user, because we're going to put the right tools in front of the end user to help drive things. Now, obviously, if the system fails because of, processing, failures, overheating of a processor, networking issues, those are very different. But if it's a decision process as a part of a, outcome in a battle, that, the J-31 was shot before, the KJ-500, well, then in that case, that's something that the tool should have provided a decision, but an opportunity for the human to still play a role in the ultimate decision-making process, such that, once again, you've got that human in the loop and that accountability where, and you'll hear this frequently, is that you'll get this characterization of human on the loop. And, in that instance, the human is still making the ultimate decision, especially when it comes to weapons employment. We've worked in different ways to employ strategies that allows the user to specify the conditions in which any weapons employed, whether it's in an automated fashion or in a semi-autonomous fashion, that the user has still put the bounding box or the constraints around it about which it's used.
So ultimately, the responsibility is vested within the pilot to make the decision and ultimately be accountable for their actions, as opposed to placing it within the system.
Yes, sir. That is, at least that is the direction that we receive from our user community today, and how we approach things from a company perspective. I think that, I posed the question with respect to how our adversary will fight, because I do think that is a challenge that, as a collective nation, that we're going to have to grapple with at some point, is that, the decision-making processes of a near-peer adversary that allows machines to make killing decisions, while we wait for a human to interject themselves. That is going to put us in a precarious situation, and we're going to have to find the right way to navigate through that, where we can still ensure that we take the righteous path, as well as the winning path.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Great question.
Sir, the last day and a half, we've heard two competing ideas. An openness and a willingness to change is inherent to our future success.
Yep.
Change in the defense environment is difficult, if not impossible. Skunkworks is a place that has produced a lot of change. Why has Skunkworks been successful realizing change in this environment?
I will say that, so the party line answer would be, I would point to Kelly Johnson's 14 rules and our approach to managing different projects. I'll say that that there is an element of obstinance and perseverance that is inherent within our culture. I will share that early on in my career, 20 years ago, 23 years ago was the first time that when I said, hey, I want to do multi-vehicle control of UAVs, I was told, no, that'll never happen. And, you know, I took that as a interesting data point, but irrelevant to my outcome, and continued to push and drive toward the vision that I saw and how we could approach things. And so in that way, I was a bit obstinate in that even from some leadership inside of our broader organization, I didn't take no for an answer. And I think that as a organization, that's one of the great things within the Skunk Works is that you know, we have that. Not only do we have the mindset or the culture to push boundaries and not take no for an answer, but we're also given the latitude to go do that. And so I think that that is one of the things that you know, it's easy for me to say that you know, we're able to take or have those levels of successes because our company or our larger organization allows us to take risks. But there are a lot of other excuse me. There are a lot of other organizations that have tried to replicate our model of innovation, and it's not just a, you know, a simple recipe of follow these few things and you'll be able to do it. It really does become a culture. You have to have that culture of innovation, that culture of wanting to do things a different way and challenging the status quo. You know, as I as I went through my my software development journey, there was an endless amount of times that I was told, you know, you're not following the right process, you're not doing it the right way, you're not doing it the way we did it on an F-16, you're not doing it how we did it on the 117, which I learned from those things, but I didn't allow those things to set a boundary condition on how we would go about innovating. And so I think that that's one of the things that I would encourage all of you. You know, when you look in the mirror and you've been told no, you know, do that as self-assessment. Is this something that I was told no because, you know, there's a you know, legitimately no way to do it? Or was I told no just because the individual who said no didn't see a path to go do it? And to be clear, I'm not suggesting to go be insubordinate and you know, go against direct leadership guidance. But I think that opportunity to challenge the status quo and ask questions. And in that instance, I would say that if you see a path that somebody else doesn't see, just keep asking questions. Eventually, you'll find somebody that's going to help, that's going to see the path that you see. And for me, you know, that's one of those things that I kept pushing. I kept asking questions until I finally found some people that resonated with what I saw. And then suddenly, you know, the dominoes started to fall. And then it was, you know, a race. You know, how fast can we go do these things? So I would say that, you know, that dichotomy of the government not, you know, moving very fast, or our services not, you know, innovating as quickly as they could. I think I look at that as an opportunity. That's an opportunity for all of you to go make an impact, make a difference by asking those questions, you know, coming up with new and innovative ways of doing things. And, you know, what's most interesting is I look, you know, back on things is that, you know, that there were a number of opportunities where we could have, you know, said, hey, we've gone far enough, but we continued to push and ask questions about different ways of doing things. And can we make this better? Can we seek a better outcome? And ultimately, by continuing to push and ask those questions, it allowed that innovation thread to continue to emerge. And ultimately, you know, in that specific use case that I'm talking about, we were able to make a huge impact. At the same time, I'll say that, you know, that is kind of inherently what's in the culture of our organization. But, you know, it's not just unique to the Skunk Works. It's something that any of you can take that on and push and, you know, challenge status quo and make a similar impact in spite of the headwinds of larger bureaucracies that you may face.
So it looks like that has exhausted our questions, and it also has exhausted our time, unfortunately. We really do appreciate your flexibility in helping us overcome disruptive technology today, and that we were able to just have the time with you today. So appreciate everything as well. We do have a gift that we will be sending your way as a part of our just small appreciation from on behalf of the department and the United States Air Force Academy. Thank you so much.
Thank
Skip.
you. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. So take a quick stretch break, grab some water or something, and I'll see you back here in 5 minutes, please. Thank you. 4 minutes.
Thank you.